and players smile at. But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Hey everyone, welcome into the Big Three NBA podcast. Sherrod Blakely, sorry I'm losing my voice, but I'm going to get through this. Gary Washburn.
She been partying hard, y'all. That's what she really trying to say. Gary, you know that voice. That's that partying hard voice. Like, sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. You know what I mean?
I have been working for 2 weeks straight. Anyway.
Air quotes, working. Air quotes, working.
See? Always comes from me. But as you all know at this point, Banner 18 has been secured. So let's just get right into it. Game 5 at the TD Garden on 6-1-7 day. There's the theory that they lost on purpose, which is definitely not true, according to that performance at least. But the parade is on Friday. We'll talk about that in just a second. Jason Tatum, 31 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. Jaylen Brown, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and the Bill Russell's 2024 final MVP. Drew Holiday, Luka, everybody showed up. Well, Luka did not show up, but everyone else showed up for the Celtics at least. So what was your biggest takeaway from the Celtics clinching?
I think that the biggest thing was they finished the season off just how it really began, and that is a total team effort. You know, when you start going through the guys that really stepped up in that Game 5, Tatum had the most points. Jaylen had, was right up there with rebounds and assists. Drew Holiday had a double-double. A guy that people aren't going to remember much from this game, but if you went back and watched it from its beginning to the end, you'll realize that Sam Hauser, made a couple of plays that set into motion that double-digit lead that they were never able to, that the Celtics were never they didn't relinquish going forward. Peyton Pritchard with the 49-foot bomb right before the half. I mean, there's a long line of folks who stepped up in the absolute most important game of the season, and that really has been a story of this team's, all year. The fact that different guys stepped up at different moments to deliver when it absolutely mattered most. They capped off one of the best regular seasons and playoff runs in franchise history. And it'll be interesting how people look at this team, not so much today, but in a year, 2, 5, 10 years from now. I think they will look much more favorably upon this team then than they do right now.
Yeah, I was impressed with overall great team effort, as Sherrod said. Just the maturity of this team, just not letting this go any further than it had to be. I think that there was a lot of concern after Game 4, like, has Dallas found something? You look at the end of Game 3, that fourth quarter, the Game 4, oh my God, here we go. It's going to be a interest. We remember the Miami series last year where the Celtics came back from 3-0. And it was like, well, is this going to be, the Celtics going to blow this lead, or are they going to make it interesting down 3? It's going to be 3-2. Then they're going to have to go back to Dallas. Oh my gosh! And is there going to be a Game 7 on Sunday?
The world is ending, Gary. The world is ending right now.
Yeah,
the world is ending.
I just think that there was a lot of concern after that Game 4 loss, and the Celtics quiet, like they came into it with the attitude like, listen, if we don't. This is not the end of the world. We still have more chances. A lot of people didn't like that mentality. I was a little uncomfortable with it. I don't know if I was like, I don't like it. I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. That
I didn't like it, but keep going.
Another way we have more games to play, even if we don't. But they took control early. They never trailed. And I just thought it was a complete team effort. Jason, Jaylen, Drew Holiday playing his ball. Kristaps Porzingis, hats off to him. 16 minutes, probably should not have played, ever been close to the floor. Gave him 5 points. Just, a little something. He wasn't going to be, a little Kristaps from old or healthy. We gave him a little something, right? Al played his butt off. Peyton with the half-court shot, more than half-court. So, it just, like Sherrod said, typified their entire season. They just battered Dallas with their depth. The defense won this series too. People they said, well, what about the offense? The offense was okay in this series, but that defense, man, put Dallas to shame. 88 points in the closeout game. Kyrie was never right in this series. So hats off to the Celtics. I mean, amazing season. We've been through all the ups and downs, and I think that a lot of times people judge them on the past, which is understandable. And you hate to put it on guys like Marcus Smart and Grant Williams, who was at the game. Well, Grant Williams was at the game, by the way. Good sport, that guy. Good guy, Grant is. I hope that he does well in Charlotte, and a couple other members of the Charlotte team were there.
Grant Williams fan club, Gary Washburn, president presiding.
Because he could be bitter, but I'm sure he's happy for his teammates, and but Brad Stevens made the moves to make the difference. Joe Mazzulla coached those guys up, and the players on the floor realized this is their year and they had to get it done. Because, I keep hearing that ad for what's the post-game podcast you do, Sherrod, with all the guys?
Report?
Huh?
The Garden Report?
The Garden Report, and Sherrod saying, anything less than a championship is a failure. I
said that on day one, Gary. I said it on day one.
Yep.
Day one.
And that is true. And I think everybody realized
it is.
And they played that way. And they played with that sense of urgency that they didn't want to mess around and have this go to games. You see now, we can go to the hockey series. Florida lost again, so now they're headed back to Edmonton. And it's not 3-0 no more, 3-2. So this could get real interesting in the hockey. They'll sell that's not going to be me. You want to sell the star now in Miami? Miami getting a chill on, or probably not
but
chill.
The cross-sport promotion, Kachuk on the Panthers, who went to Chaminade with Tatum. Now I'm rooting for the Panthers because I just love this storyline. Two St. Louis boys in their respective championships.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
In the same year. It's crazy.
And now Tatum's in Miami, so if they win, they can all celebrate together. I just made all of this up yesterday, by the way, so now I'm expressing
Very good, Kwani.
how I feel.
Good.
Well, it's true, but I'm
Well done, Kwani. Well done.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, you were saying, Gary.
By the way, Kwani, Chaka Khan did one of those Kanye West concerts. You gotta look at it. I mean, it's like your auntie up there.
I saw her. She looks amazing. If I can look even half as good as she looks.
Like Auntie Kwani up there killing it. So anyway,
I'll take it.
But I just thought complete team effort. They did everything they're supposed to do. And I said they didn't bop Dallas over the head with offense. They won this series with defense, and you got to give them credit and love for that.
Defense wins championships. Never evergreen quote. But let's look at Dallas because, as you mentioned, people thought that there was hope, there was redemption, but they never came back from this one. Luka 28 and 12 in that Game 5 loss. Kyrie 15 points, 5 for 16 on shooting. Runs into, I feel like he not to be funny, but is he cursed at the TD Garden?
What you think, Gary? That's your boy, Gary. What you think?
What was going on?
I don't know. I mean, he had some moments. He had a couple of threes, but he just wasn't as good in Dallas. He was good, really good in Game 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay in Game 4. But I wonder about. I wonder. That's all I got. It
all started when he saged the TD Garden.
I don't know. It's something psychological. And at first I was like, no, it's just happenstance. They played on a couple of bad teams. He's come in, but it's just like night and day, the performances.
Yeah.
So you honestly have to attribute it to maybe having, not just having his mental right when he gets in. Something about the atmosphere, closeout game, because he looked okay. He got off to a decent start. It was like, okay, here comes Kyrie. He's about to, not that he was going to score 40 points, but he was going to have a solid game. And he had, he was okay again. He was, if you look at his, I'm sorry, bad. 5 for 16.
Yeah, he was bad.
3 for 9. He had 9 assists. minus 11, but nothing special. Absolutely nothing special. I mean, just not that 1-2 punch that he needed with to be with Luka. Just he wasn't, and that has to be a real disappointment. And I'm sure the Mavericks have to figure out, okay, is he that guy to be that second primary option on a championship caliber team? Because if you look at his numbers, I mean, he averaged 20 points, but a lot of that's those 2 Dallas games. 27% from 3, 41% from the field. Not good. Not good. I mean, Dallas just wasn't good other than Luka. That's the main problem. And they didn't have enough supporting cast. A lot of those guys are awful in the series. Derrick Jones, 3 for 12 from 3. PJ Washington, 6 for 22 from 3. Derek Lively had one good game. Just like a lot of that was just the lack of support for Luka. I can't put everything on Luka in this series. I can't. Kyrie and those guys did not help him out at all, man. It was, they left him hanging. They was like our friend Vinny Goodwill when
Wow.
Vinny, I got mine. How much you got? Oh, damn! I left my wallet at home.
Damn! Did he put my boy V on blast? He put my boy on blast, clown.
Hi, Vinny.
Damn.
What up, V?
Vinny keeps getting all these unsolicited shots taken at him. The Celtics put him.
Poor Vinny. It's been
that video.
Tough NBA Finals for the V, man.
The Celtics have been
great writer,
I'm mad at it.
Great writer, great journalist.
Yes.
I mean, if you don't read him, you should. I mean, that puts everything in perspective. But it's been a tough road for the V, man.
I don't care what y'all say. I still got love for my nephew. That's my nephew. Now, y'all need to step back. All right, because y'all know my nephew will come out swinging. Y'all know what he do.
Yeah.
So I suggest y'all tread carefully.
Writing that Detroit coaching story because once again, Sherrod's Pistons have decided to make a change.
You know what, man?
Flowers of Monty Williams.
What do we think about that? Let's just talk about it. I know we're derailing, but I don't care.
Monty's going to be okay. There's 65 million reasons why. Yeah, there's 65 million reasons why Monty Williams is going to be all right about this. I mean, I can't be like mad at him or disappointed in him if they come into the office and say, "Hey, look, we got to cut you loose." Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Let me get my mug. Let me get my coat. We good. Because you do know y'all owe me $65 million. So if you Monty, I mean, Monty can do whatever he wants to at this point. I mean, he can take an assistant job. I don't think he's going to get another head job, not anytime soon, if at all. I think he may get a chance to be an assistant on, on another staff, perhaps. But head coaching
Boston?
job,
Think he'd fit in Boston?
I don't know. I mean, I do think that it's worth exploring. And if you Boston, you ain't got to worry about paying him. Monty ain't gonna work for free, but Monty ain't gonna hold you over a barrel and say, "Hey, y'all got to pay me this much if y'all want me to be an assistant in Boston." Please,
and a championship. Yeah, exactly.
Please,
yeah.
65. You got 65 million reasons why I'd be like, "Look, what y'all looking to pay? $5? Okay, $5. All right, I'll take that $5. I'll take that $5. Get a brother get bus fare. Okay, we get you 10. All right, we good.
We'll get you Uber.
Yeah, but all seriousness though, Monty's going to be all right though, and I do think he's going to resurface on some team's bench somewhere, but it will not be as a head coach, and it could be in Boston. That doesn't really, that's not a big stretch, especially when you consider you're definitely losing Charles, you may lose Sam too, and and you don't know who else may be going with Charles to Charlotte, or who may be going to possibly whoever LA hires, maybe on their new coaching staff, or
even Van Gundy's role, like I was talking, like
Van Gundy's now gone too. So Joe has some stuff, some positions to fill. Joe and Brad have positions to fill.
Celtics are hiring.
But
as the NBA and NHL seasons start to wind down, things are just heating up in the WNBA and on the baseball front. There's no better time than now to join Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million active members. With Prize Picks, you can turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports team this summer. You can make a Prize Pick lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and you're locked in. For me, one of my go-to guys has been Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics, who, when it comes to rebounding, I'm going more almost every time. He was great for me during the Eastern Conference Finals against Indiana when he reached double-digit rebounds in 3 of the 4 games. That's what I'm talking about, JT. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's right. Just download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Yeah.
All right, we talked about Kyrie. I want to actually ask you guys your thoughts on the comments he made about, I don't think we talked about this last week, but he basically, at one point he said Boston wasn't his first choice and blah, 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 which was interesting. But then it seems like he was backtracking when he said he wishes when he was here that he made an initiative to reach out to the legends and ask for their counsel and kind of pick their brains. What did you two make of that
Go,
comment?
Gary.
And why at that time?
Go
ahead, Sherrod.
No.
Here's what I make of that comment. To me, this whole playoff run was just like revisionist history, Kyrie 101. Trying to change the narrative of his time here and make it a little bit more palatable for folks and make him seem less controversial than he was when he was here. I'm not buying it at all. Kyrie is a really smart guy. You don't have to agree with all that he says. You don't have to understand everything he says. But there is a certain amount of thought that goes into pretty much everything he does. And Kyrie understands that at this point, he is closer towards being a historical figure in the basketball landscape than he is a guy who is balling out of his mind. He can still do that, but you're thinking more and more about him as far as his historical relevance and position in the league than you are what he can do going forward. And so he, I think, understands that, and I think he's trying to reshape the narrative surrounding who he is in a way that doesn't seem as abrasive or as offensive as it was in that moment. This whole talk about, wanting to, if I could do it again, I'd connect with the legends. Stop, bruh. Stop. Because if there's one thing that separates this organization from damn near every one other organization, is that the legends don't just go away. I mean, if you really, really, really wanted to connect with the legends, Bob Cousy is right up the damn road. If you really wanted to connect with legends, Sat Sanders is a short phone call away. If you really wanted to connect with the legends, you got Tommy Heinsohn, who, bless his soul, was right in the building every game. So don't give me this, I want to connect with the legends mumbo jumbo, because you know damn well that you could have easily done that. They were literally in your face. So no, not trying to hear this nonsense about, I wish I would have connected more with the legends. Come on, man. Stop it. Gary, go get your boy. Stop it.
Get some help. Stephen A.
I think I think Kyrie is being honest in a sense of what his mindset was when he was in Boston. And when he was here, he was just not an approachable, friendly guy at all. He just was not. And so hence, he didn't connect with the legends. He didn't talk to people. He didn't talk to, and that was 18 and 19. And there were some people who were still alive back then with Tommy, guys like John Havlicek. There were some legends that were still alive, Sam Jones. And even the more recent ones, shoot, Max is always around, right? Mm-hmm. Or even the ones that might have even played against him for a minute with Pierce and Garnett, and even, like a Ray Allen. Like, to me, he was just in a different space when he was here. He was extremely arrogant, pompous. He was like, I don't think he knew how to handle what was about to happen. And he thought he was ready and he wasn't. He had just done, and it was just ironic too, because he had just done Uncle Drew. So here he is on this new Hollywood stage. He doesn't, he basically says he covets his privacy. Leave me alone. Don't ever, don't get inside my personal life. But yet I'm going to do this movie. And I'm going to be doing all the media, and I'm going to have a premiere, and I'm going to have all these hoopers in it in this movie. And I said, I liked Uncle Drew. I didn't think it was a bad movie or whatever. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Little cute basketball movie, but he had just done that. And I just think his whole mind frame was still it's about me. And is this the place where I can be completely myself? And I don't even think he really realized what himself was at that time. So, yeah, I think, and then this whole you better study up on the tradition, and you better, I've heard other players say that they got here and they weren't really into the whole Celtic thing. What does that mean? So what? I wasn't even alive then. What you talking about? There's been other players in the past who have come to Boston and been like, y'all have been trash since I was born. I don't know. I wasn't around in the 60s. I wasn't around in the 70s. I was a, baby in 86 or whatever. You have some of these, players who don't recall and don't pay homage. And that's just not the approach to have here. I think we all understand that since we all been in this market. This is a different place. And I think Kyrie wasn't prepared for that. Even though his dad played, he claimed, oh, this is like a second home. Oh, my dad played at Boston University. I know the city. And it was a bunch of cry. It was a bunch of BS. He just wasn't ready to be a leader. He wasn't ready to be a good teammate. He wasn't even ready to be a good person in terms of the people in the organization. He did nothing, very few, unless it was forced community service stuff. It's like Kyrie, you got this kind of angle, this African American pro, angle with the black. He never reached out to the black community here. He never did events. I don't know if you all remember, I don't ever remember Kyrie doing something at Boys and Girls Club. And I'm not talking about every week.
No, I think you're right. Because that was the year I was going to all the community events.
Yeah, there was nothing, no offense, Kyrie didn't do nothing. He was not one of them guys, okay, put me on the list.
And then the report about Christmas.
Yeah.
About giving the kid a gift, and he was just like, well, I understand he doesn't celebrate Christmas, but it was still, it's a kid.
It was just things ain't nobody saying he had to be Taco Fall or Grant Williams or the guys at even Brandon Bass and Kelly Olynyk. There was guys who participated. And, it would have been cool for him once in a while to do something. Or, if you wanted to be, embrace the people of color here, then you should have done that, Kyrie. You could have been a hero here. I'm not talking about every week, but once a season, twice a season, you go out, you shoot some basketballs with these kids, you give them a thrill, a memory for the rest of their life, or you give a clinic or a camp, something like that in Boston, nothing like that. He was like, don't mess with me. Don't talk to, don't, that's not me. So, I kind of understand his basically saying that, I didn't do it right. And I agree with him. He didn't. And it's good to see him reflective, but you would have, it's even more frustrating because you want to see damn, man, you could have really put your imprint on this area in those 2 years. Even if it didn't work out on the floor, you could have been a figure in the community. You could have given back some, and he didn't do nothing, man. I just remember that. He was just not, he didn't do much at all. And privately, he has done great things. Given to the W, no, so let's not put this in, he ain't going to do nothing for nobody ever. No. Kyrie's a philanthropist. He has done a lot of things. He's paid for funerals. Not saying that. Much kudos to that. But in the city of Boston, in reaching out to the people and being a person of the people, he had a chance and he botched it. And even connecting with some of the all-time greats. He was too cool for school for that. And that hurt him. And so people aren't fond of him and don't have fond memories of him, not only on the court, but off the court.
Absolutely. That's why a guy like Isaiah Thomas, is always going to be loved here, because even though they didn't win a championship, they didn't, come close to doing that. He made himself part of this community and part of this franchise on and off the court. I mean, how many NBA All-Stars would just roll up to some park and start playing ball with a kid? That's the kind of stuff that it took maybe 15, 20, 25 minutes out of Isaiah Thomas's life. He gave that young man a memory for life, and he gave this community a memory of him that is always going to be around. And again, you don't expect Kyrie to do those type of things. You certainly didn't expect him to do those type of things. But you would have thought that for someone who has as many different platforms that are about aiding and assisting, the marginalized of our society, that he would have taken it upon himself to do some of that in Boston. And again, there's no rhyme or reason as to why he didn't. But I do appreciate the fact that I think he's starting to recognize the missed opportunity that he had in Boston. And I think, in part, that gives him a better understanding of why do people hate him so much around here. I mean, they especially after he said, "If you have me, I'll stay." I mean, they're thinking like, "Wait a minute."
No one asked. He was in the middle of the event. He just grabbed the mic from Scal and was like, "Well, I didn't get it." And he just got up and was like,
I mean, okay. it's the kind of stuff that it puts you in a space that if you back out of that, it's just like you are persona non grata forever in the mind, particularly in a fan base like this one. I mean, this ain't Oklahoma City or Charlotte on a Tuesday crowd. It ain't that. It's not that kind of fan base. They are as passionate a fan base as you're going to find in the NBA, and there is that fandom comes at a cost. And when they feel that you've crossed them, they are going to make you pay for the rest of your life. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's move on, Kwani.
Yeah, let's talk about the MVP. The Bill Russell 2024 MVP. Couldn't have been a better person when you think about namesake and mission and vision.
Not everybody felt that way, Kwani.
Not everyone felt that way. Oh, my gosh. Every time, Gary. I'm so sorry. So your vote.
They released all the voters.
Okay. When I saw the voters, for our listeners who may not be as familiar with the process.
Break it down, Kwani. Break it down
for us, Gary. No, I want Gary to break it down. How does it work?
Oh, okay.
For you?
There was 11 votes, 11 voters. Mm-hmm. And you can vote who you want. And it's generally one writer from each market. So one from Dallas, one from Boston.
Shout out Mike Curtis. Was he the designated one?
So I didn't look at all the names.
I saw him on the list. Who did he got a vote somehow?
Yeah. And then it's
I think two from there.
ESPN NBA people. So Doris Burke, I think PJ Carlissimo was on that list. And
Malika Andrews.
So that made 4. And I think it was 7 national writers.
They should pick a random fan to be spicy.
Yeah, something like that. Sure, Kwani. So, yeah, that was it. And we just vote. That was it. And, and people asked me, what was I thinking or whatever. I just thought Tatum led the team in points, rebounds, and assists. And I just thought that sequence in the third quarter when it was kind of hanging on, like Dallas was still kind of hanging around, and he put the hammer down. I just thought that kind of clinched it for him. And I said, I had no issues with Jaylen winning. I was split. I voted for Jaylen for
the
Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And that was 5-4. But if you look at the voters, Vinny was on the list, Sean Powell, our friend, Jeff Zilga from USA Today, Simone Sandri from Italy, Mike Curtis, PJ Carlissimo. So, various national and then TV and then a couple of ESPN folks get the vote.
Do you know ahead of the game that you're getting? I imagine you know ahead of the game you're getting that vote, right?
They inform you during the series when it gets to closing and ask you if you want to. Some people don't want to vote.
Yeah.
So they ask, and I always say, okay, that's cool. this one, the Jaylen one was 5-4. I was like, man, might have put them over the top. This one, I wasn't, I wasn't sure. I didn't know it was 2 more voters than it was for each conference.
Uh-huh.
So it was 11 and not 9. And I thought Jaylen would probably win it because some of us discussed it during halftime, like where we were leaning. But I just thought those buckets that Jason got down the stretch were just put him over the top. But obviously, not everybody felt that way. And I thought, obviously, Jaylen's defense on Luka was remarkable. I think that was probably the biggest surprise of the series was the defense they played on Luka. Obviously, I think the surprises in terms of Dallas were their supporting cast never really stepped up. Kyrie was bad, mostly not bad. He was below average.
Yeah, he was. He was trash most of the series. I'm gonna say it for you guys. You ain't gotta say it because you're really nice. I'm not. He was trash most of the series.
And the defense on Luka, I thought was one of the biggest surprises of the series, and that was because of Jaylen. So much respect to Jaylen. I just thought Jason 31-11 assists, 8 rebounds in a closeout game, kind of a signature moment, hitting those big shots that and one. Like I said, with Dallas, it was a 26-point lead, then it went to 18, and I think we're all asking ourselves, okay, is this going to be one of those games where it gets to like 9 and it gets nervous? And Jason was like, nah, we good. I got this. So that's what put it over the top for me. But I was glad to be. I'm glad if I was wrong or he didn't win. I had no problem with that. I'm so happy for Jaylen.
I was actually surprised that Jaylen won, and here's why. I thought and so was Jaylen was too. After the first 3 games, I thought Jaylen was a clear-cut MVP after the first 3 games. Game 4, everyone sucked on the Celtics for the most part, but I thought Tatum sucked the least of them. And so I thought because of that, he had closed the gap a little bit from the first 3 games, where I still thought Jaylen was the MVP, but I think the gap was a little bit closer going into Game 5. And I just thought the difference in Game 5 was going to put Tatum over the top. Tatum was the best player on the floor in Game 5. When you look at his scoring, you look at the rebounding, you look at the playmaking, his defense was really good, I thought. And to me, it was a no debate that he was the best player in the most important game of the season, making all the big plays that we had seen Derek White or Drew Holiday or Jaylen Brown make through the first 3 games. Tatum was doing that. And my thinking was that, well, if it was fairly close coming into this probably put Tatum over the top. I thought it was going to be a 6-5 type of situation where Tatum would win, but it would be as close as you could possibly be to not winning. And when they said that it was 7-4, I'm thinking like, damn, Tatum did better than I thought. And then it says Jaylen Brown. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. And when you look at Jaylen's face, if you were to do a side-by-side screenshot of me and Jaylen, we had very similar expressions of shock because I didn't think he was going to win it. And again, it has nothing to do with him playing down or not being worthy. Yeah. It's just I thought the gap was so close going into that Game 5 that I thought Tatum had done enough to put him over the top. But clearly, folks felt otherwise. And I have no problem with that because if you're looking at the totality of what he did throughout the entire playoff run, Jaylen Brown was the most valuable player on this team. You look at the shots that he made in just critical, game-changing, series-shifting moments. Jaylen Brown delivered. And even in Game 5, even though Tatum was the best player, Jaylen had some moments where he had some really big plays. And, again, going back to his defense on Luka, Luka is a phenomenal scorer. One of the best, I think, the league has to offer right now. And he does it with very little motion. He's not, beating you with above the rim stuff or shooting from 50 feet and doing all the things that we've come to define as greatness. He just finds ways to get buckets. And Jaylen made him work harder than I think he's ever had to work. Luka's probably going to have to rethink what his offseason regimen is because of Jaylen Brown. Mm-hmm. Jaylen Brown wore his ass out.
You saw the clip when he said, when Luka is in, put me back in too.
Yeah. And that doesn't even get into the, some of the leadership stuff that Jaylen, did. I mean, they had Jaylen mic'd up for Game 5, and they were showing some of the sound from that. And I was listening to that this morning, and there was a point before the game where Jaylen goes over to Tatum and he just says, in his ear, like, you're not going to be alone out there. Remember that. And he had his arm on his back just kind of patting him. And that's the kind of stuff that it absolutely smacks the crap out of that narrative that these two can't get along, that these two can't work together. Jaylen understands, and both of them have talked about this. Jaylen understands that his value is predicated heavily on what Tatum does, and Tatum has said the same thing. They cannot be as dominant a player as they have shown themselves to be thus far without the other. It is a proven fact that over the course of a playoff series, at some point, those two are going to put the Celtics over the top because of their ability to work in sync with each other. And I thought, again, this was the first playoff run where we've seen more times than not, they weren't tripping over each other to be that guy. They just seemed to be kind of running at a very comparable pace. It's just that it was faster than damn near anyone else was running. And so it was really good to see them really, I think, show their as close to their potential as a tandem as we've seen in their careers. And again, I think, I'm with Gary on this one. I would not have had an issue with either one of them being MVP. Yeah. And if it came down to where it was like a tie for MVP, where someone said both of them and 5 were for, 5 were for one and 5 for the other, and someone said, I can't pick one, so I'm going to pick both, I would have been cool with that. They would have been cool with that. And I mean, in fact, if I bet you if there was some collusion among the voters, which there wasn't, that probably would have happened.
Oh, has that ever happened in the past?
I don't think so. I don't think there's ever been a tie.
Yeah, we don't need a scandal this year.
But if there would be a year to have one, this would have been the year for that.
The perfect year.
The NBA Finals have finally arrived and will once again be one of the hottest tickets in sports. You want to be there and not have to mortgage the family home or take a second job to do so, right? Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. That's a huge get when it comes to the NBA Finals, which will start in Boston for Games 1 and 2. Those tickets are going to be super pricey, so waiting to the last minute and take advantage of the Game Time app makes a ton of sense. Here in Boston, every season is sporting season, so for me, the Game Time app makes it super easy to find tickets for just about every sport in my area, which is great this time of year when family or friends pop into town at the last minute and you're scrambling for something to do that won't break the bank, like, getting tickets to the NBA Finals. Game Time has you covered. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
No, I do appreciate how Jaylen Brown used that underdog mentality to be as productive as he was this postseason, because he's been told ever since Tatum's been drafted that it's Tatum's team, and not necessarily by his teammates, but the outsiders, the noise, the media, whatever the case may be. So the fact that he won, I know that he was shocked, but I am also happy for him because let's say this ends up really becoming Tatum's team, even though they've clearly proven that that's not the case, that the two of them can coexist and be just as productive. At least he has one already, because we know, like, especially from that vote, that Tatum most likely will be getting a lot of those in the future. So no loss on Tatum's part, but also congratulations to Jaylen, because now he has the opportunity. And of course, he'll be fueled to want to get it again. So friendly competition. I'm a fan of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's look at the big picture. All-time great offense, elite defense. Is this, I'm being a little dramatic here, one of the all-time great...
Wait, Kwani be a little dramatic?
Soccer. Do you think this is one of the all-time great Celtics teams? If so, why? And if not, what are they missing?
Gary, I want to hear what you got
They're
to say.
missing Gary. That's what they need.
That's what they're missing.
Of course.
I have to. I mean, if you look at the numbers, you gotta put them on that level because of their playoff run. It's really hard to go 16-3 in the playoffs, and I don't care who you play, and people will kind of dissect the competition. Well, they didn't play, because you could say like they didn't play that like equal. One, they didn't have an equal really this year. Secondly, they didn't play Denver. They didn't play Oklahoma City. They didn't play a Milwaukee or Phil, like a showdown series. Even the Knicks. They didn't play that epic series with the dramatic music and the going back and forth and the start. Like, they didn't play that series. They handled their business so much easier, and made it look like the competition was bad. I thought, Miami wasn't up to par, obviously, without Jimmy Butler. I thought Cleveland was solid, but and then Indiana was a team that was kind of tricky, very hard to play. The Celtics, after almost damn near losing that game one in Indiana, took care of business, swept them, won some close games in Indiana, took care of business, and got them out of there. And then Dallas, who had beaten Oklahoma City, had beaten Minnesota, which beat Denver, took care of them in 5. So you cannot argue, like, everything they were supposed to do, they did. They lost 3 playoff games. We talk about the 08 team, and I've said this before. The 08 team lost 10 playoff games. So, honestly, do you compare those teams when one team went 16-3 and the other team went 16-10? And you look at the competition, well, they played LeBron, I get it, and they played the Pistons, Sherrod's Pistons. Competition might be a little more stiff, but that team also went 7 games with the 8th seed in Atlanta. They took care of the Lakers in 6. So to me, you've got to put them on a certain level where you say, oh, it's like you want to put them on the same floor with the 86 team, then you're probably going to lose that argument. But in terms of what they did statistically, with how easy they made it look, winning 80 games throughout the season, you got to say they're one of the best Celtic teams of all time. You have to say that. 64th all-time in wins, and they got it done. One of those teams that won 68 didn't. They got Havlicek got injured that year in the playoffs, and they didn't win the championship. So I think you have to with the numbers. Now, a lot of that is nostalgia. Oh, they would never beat teams with JoJo White and, Dave Cowens and John Havlicek and Paul Silas and Don Chaney. They would, and Charlie Scott, you could say that. And I'm sure the old timers would say, hell no. But what this team accomplished, the numbers, the overall getting it done, beating the hell out of everybody they played, yeah, they are. I don't know about number 1, but they number something. They in the top. They in the tops.
Top something.
If you're having, first of all, in order to even be worthy of even having a conversation, you got to win a championship, which this team has done. So you got to almost look at it going in reverse order. Winning a championship, okay. How did you do in the regular season? They had one of the greatest regular seasons in franchise history. Okay. How did you put this team together? What is this team built to have the ability to win multiple championships? When you go back to those teams in the 80s, there was a reason why they kept winning championships, because they kept the core together. The way that Brad Stevens has structured a lot of these contracts, these guys ain't going nowhere for a minute. And so they have the potential to be a dynasty-like team. But when you talk about all-time greatness, you also have to not only look at how they are as a team, but also as individuals. One of the reasons why those teams in the 80s were so great was because they had a bunch of Hall of Famers on the squad. You look at the Celtics team, Tatum is going to be a Hall of Famer. Jaylen Brown is probably, now that he's got the NBA Finals MVP, and he's probably going to make at least 3 former All-Stars before he's done, he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Drew Holiday, I believe, with 2 chips and a major role in both of them and Olympic gold, yep, he's probably going to be in that mix too. Derek White, the jury's still out on that, but he's got the potential to at some point be in that conversation, a la Michael Cooper. And Al Horford, first player from the Dominican Republic to win an NBA title, count it. He's going to be in there too. So now you're talking about 4, 5, maybe 6 guys that are going to likely be Hall of Famers. You start looking at the great Celtics teams, guess what? They usually have 4, 5, 6 guys who are Hall of Famers. So to me, it's a very easy argument to make that they're one of the greatest teams ever. Now, are they the greatest ever? That chapter has yet to be written, because when you talk about being the all-time GOAT, you got to win multiple championships. Yeah. And I would argue that it's harder to do that in this day and age than it was back then, because there's just more teams. That creates more variations, more potential roadblocks on your path towards being the last team standing. But if this Celtics team, with Tatum and Brown at the core, if they can reel off maybe 3 more titles in the next 5-6 years, 4 titles, similar to what Golden State has done, yeah, this team, the status of this particular team will increase exponentially, because they will be seen as the ground zero of the dynasty. And because of that, their status will continue to grow and escalate, and to the point where I think this team has the potential, when all is said and done, to be viewed as the greatest Celtics team ever. Because you look, and Gary touched on this earlier, from a statistical standpoint, they beat the snot out of everyone this year. I mean, not 1, not 2, but 3 teams they handed a 50-piece beatdown to. That's never happened in NBA history. You look at what they've done defensively. You start looking at all the different defensive statistical metrics and things of that nature, and the offensive execution and all the data that they have compiled over the course of this season at that end of the floor. This is one of the most dominant teams that we have ever seen in NBA history. And the reason why people aren't more excited about it is because there is a certain recency anti-bias where you don't want to give them too much credit, because it just happened. It's still fresh. We haven't gained an appreciation for the moment, because the moment we're still living in right now. I think over time, in the next 3, 4, 5 years, as we look back on this team, I think that they will only be looked upon more favorably than they are right now. People will start looking at those numbers a little bit more closely and realize, damn, nobody has been this dominant since that 2-4 Celtics team. Wow, no team has had that many. Like this, so-and-so has won 2 games by 52 points. But that still ain't the best. But that 24 Celtics team, they won 3 games during the regular season by 50 more points. Time has to move on before this team can move up in the eyes of many. And I think if they can stay healthy and stay together, which Whit Grossbeck made it pretty clear that was his plan, this could be the greatest Celtics team ever.
Well, in the words of the great poet Natasha Bedingfield, the rest is still unwritten.
Wow. Didn't see Natasha. Okay.
You guys know that song. Don't act like you don't know it.
I know what you're saying, but I did not see that coming, Kwani. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Gary's like, what?
Gary definitely maybe does not know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But before we wrap up, let's talk about the offseason. The Celtics, it never stops. There was a report that they actually had some recruits the day after the Celtics had won the championship. Most of the executives had barely gotten any sleep. Shout out to them, honestly. And also shout out to the prospects that had to perform in front of potentially tired and maybe hungover execs. I'm not saying they were hungover. I'm just saying they may have been. But the offseason, they have the drafts coming up. The Celtics have the number 30 pick, the 54th pick. That's next week, June 26th, June 27th. So pick and roll. Let's talk about the draft itself. Do you guys like that the draft is 2 days?
No. It's a horrible idea. Nobody paid. The only reason the second day will be mildly interesting is because people want to see where Bronny going to go. That's the only thing that's like noteworthy about the second round. And once he goes off the board, then it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? So no,
he doesn't go off the board.
I don't. If I'm a draft prospect, I think one of the best days to work out for a team is the day after something like this, because you got to think.
They're super happy. You're right.
Are they really kind of analyzing you as closely as? Would anyone be shocked if there's a cat that performs really well or supposedly worked out really well for Boston, and then the next place he goes, he's trash? And you think, like, why was he nice in Boston and he was trash in Philly? Well, Boston, that was the day after they won a championship. Oh,
everybody was happy.
Everybody was happy. I mean, they was just like, yeah, man, this year he went with 54 pick. Yeah, he all right. Yeah. Who next? Yeah. No, listen, the Celtics, here's the thing. Whoever they draft, you ain't going to play. I'm just let you know that right now. You are not going to play. Because
they're now.
they just won a championship, and they're bringing the whole band back, basically. So last I checked, they don't really have that clear and undeniable hole that some, 19, 20, 21-year-old rookie is going to help fill. Could they use another big? Maybe, because they're probably going to lose Tillman and or Cornette. Could they use another wing? Maybe. I wouldn't mind if they had someone, but you got Jordan Walsh. So do you really need to fill it? I just don't see what value they're going to get, and wouldn't be surprised if they use that 30th pick and flip and go into the second round and get a couple second rounders or get future second rounders. I'm curious what Gary think about the draft, though.
I do think there's probably a quality player they can get at 30 if they do. Obviously their scouting is impeccable, and they can get a guy who can contribute down the road to their bench because they do need, like Sherrod said, they could use another active backup big. Now, if you think Neemias Queta might be that guy down the road, we'll see about that. They got some prospects. They got guys like, Drew Peterson. We'll see what happens with J.D. Davidson. His two-way situation's over in Boston. He can sign with somebody else, but he can't come back on a two-way. They'd have to sign him to a primary NBA contract. So we'll see what they do with him. But yeah, I think I don't like the draft over 2 days. Like Sherrod said, no one really cares about the second round. It's not the NFL where you can get Hall of Fame guys in the second round. And after the first round, this draft is so bad in terms of the name recognition. Like, we don't know half the guys who are going to be drafted. Most of them are international. Some of the most popular college guy is probably Zach Edey, the big kid out of Purdue, the 7'4" center out of Purdue, who's
I'd take him at 30.
Not a lottery pick. We'll see but I think some team will fall in love with him and his potential. And he's got some dog in him. The tall kid Klingon from Connecticut is on the board. Yep. Like, there's guys who are just like, oh, okay, they're pretty good in college. Like, there's no interest here. Like, to me, you're gonna have to look. You have to have a book or Google these names and stats, because once it gets past the first couple of picks, you're gonna be like, who? Oh, this kid from France, this kid from Germany. It's gonna be a bunch of international guys that we've never seen play. So I don't like the 2-day thing. And then I think, but the only thing is going to be the more familiar names from college who will drop to the second round. And obviously the Bronny situation, which I think is going overboard now with he's only working out for certain teams. He's not going to sign a two-way. They're trying to guide him to a certain team. And we'll see.
Full nipple baby status.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, he goes from, I'll do anything to play in the NBA and work hard, but now he's coming in as this major diva, and it's not a good look. But I don't think they care about that. I just think they care about getting him to the particular design team that they want.
Sounds about right. Okay, so Sherrod, you mentioned all the free agency extensions, the players, the options, but let's quickly play a game of buy, rent, or sell. All of the Celtics' top 8 are coming back.
I am going to rent. I'm going to rent it.
Yeah, okay.
Because rent means, basically that I am purchasing it now, but I am not buying it for the long haul. Here's why. Here's the thing. Luke Cornette, for example, is he in your top 8? If he is, then no, he ain't coming back. I don't think he's coming back, but I don't consider him one of the top 8 players, to be candid with you, which is why, I'm willing to – all the guys that you saw in the playoffs, in the finals, who played significant minutes, I expect all of them to be back. And Tillman is the one guy that I think has a chance to not be back, that I really wish could be back, because I think we started to see a little bit of what he could do as they got closer and closer to the championship. And if I'm the Celtics, I want to see if I can explore that a little bit more. But it's easier said than done, because Tillman, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, and it becomes a matter of how much you're willing to pay to keep him around. Because, you've, as much as Wick has shown their willingness to just cut the check, there's certain players where you got to be, okay, now seriously, I can cut the check, but is that really? Am I really getting some decent bang for my buck in cutting a check that size for that guy? So it'll be interesting to see what they do with X-Man. But I'm right now. I am renting the idea that their top 8 will be back because I do think that there's a possibility that one or two at the very end, like a Luke Cornett, a Xavier Tillman, guys who were basically in that kind of quasi-eighth spot, won't be back.
Yeah, I'd say yes, the top 8 will be back. The only person in question is, I don't know, Tillman's the one that's probably on question in Cornett. But it all depends. If you're including Hauser and Pritchard, yeah, they're all coming back. Mm-hmm. So I don't consider Tillman and Cornett in the top 8. But yeah, the whole gang is coming back. They have a player option or a team option on Hauser. They're certainly going to exercise that.
Hell
Pritchard
yeah!
just signed an extension. Horford's got one more year on his deal. He's coming back. Porzingis and Holiday just signed extensions. Jason's about to get Pizzade in a couple of weeks. So, yeah, the gang is all coming back.
Derek White's the only one whose numbers you don't have a feel for just yet. But everything that they have said and done at this point leads you to believe that they're going to get a deal done with Derek White. And he is another one that's going to get Pizzade, as Gary puts it. Not like Tatum. Certainly not like Tatum, but he gonna get broke off well, which he deserves. He absolutely deserves that. I don't think my boy O'Shea will be back though.
Oh yeah.
He's got a player option though, so I mean, and he's gonna do what players do. He's gonna play that option and see what try to get that cheddar elsewhere. Got his championship. Now let's go get that cheddar.
Look, all right, another game. Fill in the lane. The Celtics need to blank in order to repeat as NBA champions next season.
Real simple. Stay healthy. I think that is more than anything else would keep them from repeating. We saw how one injury they were able to withstand that with Porzingis, and it wasn't for the totality of the playoffs. But my gut tells me that if they were to go into the postseason and have something similar like that happen and face the tougher team, which I think they will next year, being able to navigate around his absence will be much harder for them. So to me, staying healthy is the absolute essence for this team in order to repeat as champs next year.
Yeah, I'm going to say that, but also the hunger. That championship hangover is hard. And I think if you look at the Denver Nuggets, they look like they were primed, but then they didn't have the supporting cast. The mistake they made is they let Bruce Brown go and Jeff Green. They thought they could replace them with younger players, and it didn't quite work out that way. And I think in the playoffs, they had too much responsibility on their top-level players. The Celtics shouldn't go through that issue, but I do think they need to upgrade. Like, the Celtics are not going to just sit on their hands. Like, they're going to try to upgrade the bench. They're going to try to get better. And that's, that's a good thing. As a Celtic fan, you want Brad Stevens to go out there, bring in a draft pick, figure out if any of these guys are international that they have stashed away already, figure out what to do with Drew Peterson and J.D. Davidson, and then just add maybe another veteran. They could use another shooter, they could use some more scoring off the bench. And now that they're a championship teams, they'll attract more players who just want to win a ring, right? Who will take less money to be in that championship culture. This is a good advertisement for them to get to that next level and try to repeat because players will be like, oh, okay, like Boston, okay. I watched the whole finals on TV. I seen how they get down. Bunch of good guys there. So all that comes in, and they're like, shoot, I'll sign a 1-year deal, try to win a chip. And the rest of the East, everybody's got questions. Is Embiid going to be completely healthy? What does Philadelphia? What do they do? Because they got a slot to bring in a free agent. Are the Knicks? Are they going to be ready? What about teams like Indiana? Are they going to take that step forward? Like the Celtics are still a favorite in the East, But they got to have that dog in them, party all summer. But when it gets down to gets down to like September, then you know what? Get your game face ready, get workouts ready, and try to go back to back.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
Well, that's a wrap on a amazing regular and postseason for the Celtics. We're not done. The podcast will continue. We have the draft to talk about, free agency. Of course, I mentioned very early on in this episode, the parade on Friday. Are either of you attending? Well, I imagine you're covering it just in some capacity.
I will not be attending. I will not be attending.
Gary, are you covering it? Do you have to do anything? I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna be out there. I'm gonna try to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out where I fit in terms of.
You gonna be on a duck boat?
I don't know. I've talked to this.
How do we get on a duck boat?
It's changed since when I was in Detroit, I was on the duck boat with Corliss.
I figured. With
Corliss Williamson.
Oh.
Quick story too. He was shaking hands with someone in the crowd on the duck boat, or on the boat that was going through. They didn't have duck boats in Detroit, and the woman who shook his hand took his wedding ring, and Corliss was just like, "Yo, she got my ring." I was like, "I got you." I got off the boat that we were riding on, found a woman, got my dude's ring, got back on it. It's like, "I got you, dog."
You're real for that.
I was a real one for that, man.
No, that's real right there.
That's my dude. My dude. But I don't think any media are doing the duck boat unless you work for the team or, all that kind of stuff. We're
gonna find out.
Which is too bad. Yeah, Gary will find out for us.
Yeah,
Gary loves it.
Because if we see Gary in a duck boat, getting a swerve on with Derek White, we're like, oh, okay, I guess they get okay.
Yeah, we'll see.
Him and Joe Mazzulla, that's what I want to see. I want to see you and Joe Mazzulla in the same boat.
So I want to be on the duck boat with Jaylen's mother because at this past weekend I did an event, and at the event she had just flown in from Dallas. Excuse me. And I was like, "I'll see you this week," and she was like, "Yeah, I'll see you on a duck boat." Which whatever, we're just talking. But then she was like, "I've actually never been on a duck boat in Boston," which I was like, "Interesting tidbit." So this is going to be her first experience on a duck boat, and at that. It's on a championship level for a Boston parade, which I was like, wow, that's cute. Because I've been on one once before. I can't even remember the context, to be honest, but it was okay. But riding through the city is different. So
it is. I've been on a couple, and it's a cool experience. You got to do it at least one time in your life, especially if you're here in Boston.
Right,
got to do it at least once.
Exactly.
Gary, you ever been on a duck boat, Gary?
Yeah, I have done the duck boat tour.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you like it?
Okay.
Yeah, it was cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're watching and you haven't been on a duck boat in Boston, you should do it.
Absolutely.
Put it on your bucket list for the summer. All right. Well, we'll be back next week on the Big Three NBA podcast for Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn. I'm Kwani Lunis. Enjoy the parade, and congratulations to the Boston Celtics.